Okay, so today we'll cover more on the topic of mindfulness, or rather, what's right mindfulness. This is where the seven factors of enlightenment, this Bojjhanga, kind of appear in this in this Satipatthana. You want to talk about the Noble Eightfold Path, then this right mindfulness, we'll have this term, Bojjhangas. Okay, so if you look at this Time magazine here, now this mindfulness is very popular, right? Mindfulness. Who has attended any mindfulness workshop courses? A few people. Non-Buddhist, non-Buddhist mindfulness courses. Okay, so actually this mindfulness revolution, I think, started from the Burmese people. These Burmese, they have this Vipassana movement, the mindfulness movement. Then the people from the West, they go and copy lah. They go and take the parts that supposedly they think might work, be general, and can commercialize. Yeah? So that's what the Western, some of the innovators want to do. And they strip off all the religious element. So a lot of things like reflection of impermanence, rising and falling, they don't really use it in, I think, secular mindfulness courses because it leads to dispassion, correct? Leads to dispassion. So if you apply in workplace mindfulness setting, if the workers are so contented, they won't make enough money for the company, right? So they don't want this to happen. So they say, okay, just be aware, everything aware, then continue your greed. Then you make more money for the company. So that's I said, very on the surface kind of mindfulness, doesn't really penetrate and remove greed. Okay, so we talk about two kinds of mindfulness first. Okay, so there are two types of mindfulness. One is forgetfulness. Like, for example, somebody forget to put something in, or forget to bring something. I'm not sure whether you heard this, especially in the Buddhist community, your Buddhist friends, you forget to bring something, then your Buddhist friends tell you, no mindfulness. F? Yeah, no mindfulness. Okay, so the mindfulness term is so misused that people kind of mix up what is the real mindfulness we're supposed to go after. So we talk about the first type of, definition. I will call this the more mundane aspect of mindfulness. First is memory. Memory. So a lot of people tend to equate mindfulness as memory. So one example is this minister have a conversation with the Buddha, this Vasakara. So the Buddha asked this minister, what do you think is the qualities of a wise man? And to him, a wise man means must have mindfulness. You must remember everything you hear or see long ago. Then that is called a wise person. So that's their definition. So in the pre-Buddhist era, maybe the other religions, they also talk about mindfulness. They equate it as memory. They equate it as memory. So when the Hindu civilization, when it spread to the Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Myanmar, and so on, all these countries also adopt the Hindu kind of language and culture. So much so that when Buddhism kind of spread to Thailand, they also use the same word, sati. Sati. So the sati equals to like everything. They equals to mundane mindfulness also. So the mindfulness in Pali language is called sati. So they have this issue. So in Chinese is called 正念. Correct? Chinese is called 正念, mindfulness. So for normal mindfulness, the Chinese call it 正念. For right mindfulness, they also call 正念. So you have this issue. So if let's say you forget to bring something, then the Buddhist friend will tell you, 没有正念. No mindfulness. But the non-Buddhist friend will tell you, 你的记忆力很差, you have poor memory. So the non-Buddhists use the better term than the Buddhists. The non-Buddhists use a more correct term than the Buddhists. Okay, so I give one example or some contrasting case studies. Because in order to find the truth, you first need to find some contradiction. So for example, the case of Venerable Ananda. Venerable Ananda is the what? Foremost in memory, right? The monk foremost in memory. But among all the enlightened monks in the Buddha's time, he's the last one to get enlightened. Foremost in memory, but last one to get enlightened. Right? But later on, when we go through the Satipatthana Sutta, they will tell you the agenda, the purpose of mindfulness is the only way, or some people say the one way to reach enlightenment. So if memory equates to mindfulness, the right mindfulness, then Venerable Ananda should be the first one to reach enlightenment. But he's the last one. Among the 500 arahants, is the last one. Right? So that's the first case study. Second case study is the opposite. And this monk called Venerable Chula Pantaka. So Venerable Chula Pantaka is the mentally challenged monk, a bit intellectually challenged monk. So he's the one that cannot memorize anything. Cannot memorize anything. Right? You heard of this story before? Who haven't heard of this story? Okay, a few people. Okay, so this monk is supposedly has so bad memory that he cannot memorize any chanting. So he's kind of asked to leave the monastery and being like chased out of the monastery. So he was so sad and he was crying. That time the Buddha wasn't at the monastery. So the Buddha happened to walk past and look at this monk. Why is he crying? Why are you crying? So this monk, Venerable Chula Pantaka, told the Buddha what happened. So and so the monks in the monastery don't want to accept me because I cannot memorize chanting and so on. So the Buddha said, don't worry, you're still my disciple. So the Buddha gave him tasks to do. Brought him to his room and gave him some cleaning duties, cleaning chores. The Buddha gave him a white cloth. Asked him to wipe something. So when wiping, the Buddha just tell him, you just need to memorize one word, and that word is white. So the guy said, yeah, one word, no problem, can memorize. White. Because the cloth is white, right? So he's focused on wiping, white. So when he turned the cloth is not white, it's dirty, got dust. Right? So he immediately realized the Dhamma. He saw the truth. Right? So that's the case study of this Venerable Chula Pantaka. So you don't need great memory or great intelligence to be mindful. Okay, the second definition of the worldly kind of mindfulness is precision. Carefulness, precision. You draw lines accurately, you're very careful, you don't miss a spot, you don't make mistakes, right? Precision. So before the Buddha got enlightened, he was practicing this precision, not to step on any insect when he's walking, very, very careful, very precise, very scrupulous, right? But still not yet enlightened. So that was another definition of mindfulness. So for example, same thing for the Buddhist community, if you accidentally hit something or trip and fall, the Buddhist friends will also tell the same thing, right? No mindfulness. No mindfulness. So the term is like so misused. Okay, so I'm going to give an example, maybe a more modern example, not from the scripture. Because in the Satipatthana Sutta, Mindfulness is supposed to overcome all your distress, your sorrow, lamentation, and suffering, and whatever. So one example is, for example, gymnastics. Olympics, gymnastics. Who watch gymnastics, Olympics? Ice skating, those things that need to somersault, lots of precision. You make a wrong move, you fall down, you probably won't win anything, right? So that is precision. So I'm not sure whether you watched. There's like a case where I've ever seen a team. They did all their routines so well. They all do all their flips, their somersaults. Everything seemed perfect. They did everything almost seemed perfect. But when the judges announce a score, they lose to another team by 0.1 points. Then they got the second place. So they were crying and sobbing and very upset. So if precision and carefulness equals to mindfulness, then they shouldn't be upset. They should be, the mind should be at peace. But no, they have lots of expectation, lots of suffering. So worldly mindfulness doesn't equate to detachment. So maybe a more relevant kind of example, maybe in a workplace setting. If a person is so precise, so careful, so efficient, I would say they have the best KPI in their company, right? The best performer. Does that mean they are free from stress? They might be the other way around, right? In fact, most of them very stressful. Sometimes they can be very angry. So that is not the kind of mindfulness we are looking for. They are very precise and effective in what they're doing, but mentally or emotionally may not be very ideal. Okay.
It's just previously was from another person, but this is directly from the
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Before he got enlightened. Before he got enlightened. So that's another definition of mindfulness.
When you say that, it's written.
So he was recollecting the past when he was practicing as a bodhisattva. Yep.
So they still use mindfulness to describe happiness.
Yeah, another explanation of, I would say, scrupulousness. Yeah, another definition. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this, the actual mindfulness after the Buddha got enlightened. So he coined a new term, Sammasati. So before that, everyone else just called Sati. After the Buddha got enlightened, he used the term Sammasati, the right kind of mindfulness, the one that will lead you to liberation. So this is the term. So I'm going to use the translation, okay, not exactly, from Thanisaro Bhikkhu. Okay. Okay, so this is a definition of mindfulness, right? To purify beings, overcome sorrow, lamentation, disappearance of pain and stress, attainment of the right method. So there is a right method, and sometimes there is also a wrong method. Some Buddhists, they go and practice other kinds of mindfulness, may not be related to the right mindfulness. So I'll give examples later. Realization of unbinding. So eventually, right mindfulness will lead you to liberation, unbinding. Okay, so there are 4 things to be mindful of. Body, feelings, mind, mental qualities. Not mindful of the news and the stock market and all those things. Yes, you can pay attention to those things, but you need to be mindful of these 4. Yeah? Okay, so body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities. So this is Ajahn Jeff's translation. Most people use either phenomena or Dhamma. So these are the 4 things. Yeah? Okay, so mindfulness and body we kind of covered previously. So there are 6 things. So we covered breathing like yesterday. 4 postures: standing, sitting, walking, lying down. All your activities, even talking, eating, turning around, whatever position you're doing, all activities you can practice mindfulness, and there's a term, clear comprehension. Mindfulness and clear comprehension, that's the term. If a person doesn't have clear comprehension, if they're holding something, they're not clear, then they call this. This is, I call it, this, okay, for a normal person, we call this a remote, right? If a person doesn't have clear comprehension, they call this, I don't know, they call this eraser. Or this is a marker pen. Or this is a spoon, right? They do not have clear comprehension. So if they're mindful and clear comprehension, that means they also know what they're doing. So the clear comprehension will kind of touch on the mundane mindfulness part, the one that the Buddhist community likes to call mindfulness. So that is called clear comprehension, to be clear of what you're doing, basically, attention to detail, clear comprehension. So mindfulness would mean more of detachment, more of detachment. Okay, then the 4th one, mindfulness of body parts. Then the 4 elements and the stages of body decomposition. So we've covered this in like the first few days. Okay, so in this sutta, there will be like a repeating verse over and over again. After the Buddha talks about, or not the Buddha, I mean the reciters and compilers, they mention after mindfulness of breathing, they repeat this verse. After they mention 4 postures, they repeat the same verse again. Afterwards, mindfulness activities, they repeat the same verse again. Just like in music, you have a chorus, right? This very repetitive paragraph they repeat over and over again. And if it repeats over and over again, it means it's quite important. So we're going to look at this important chorus, stop formula. Okay, so there are, I think, 4 parts to it. First part, you can be focused internally or externally. So there's an external body. Okay, internally would mean your own body. Externally will be, for example, other person's body. For example, if you look at the corpse is not your body, right? So the corpse is external body. Or if you want to talk about the 4 elements, all these are made of the 4 elements. The whole universe is made of the 4 elements. So there's something external. Or if you want to talk about 32 parts of the body, right? We can use it internally and externally. So it's the perception stunning phase. Perception stunning phase. So that's the step 1. Remember the Zen poet which I mentioned, see mountains as not mountains. So whatever meditation theme you're doing, when you perceive outside, you look at outside, you remember your meditation theme, 4 elements or whatever, 5 aggregates, then you kind of stun your perception, stun your craving perception. So that's the first step. But stunning for one moment, not good enough. The mind will start to cling again. will start to cling again. So this is where you put in action. The mind is a bit like a cement mixer. The cement inside the cement mixer. Once you do not think of impermanence, it will harden. The cement will solidify, confirm one. You never spin only, confirm, solidify. You will cling on something. Okay, so what you need to reflect, it remains focused on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So I didn't use the full verse. So there's some more. Either you can be aware of origination or passing away, or both, origination or passing away. Depends on what you can detect. Depends on what you can observe. Depends on your sensitivity of your mind. Okay, then the last one. All is mindfulness. There's a body maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. Okay, if You cannot observe any movement, any kind of impermanence. At least remember your meditation object. So that is the last statement. Okay, then the last point. That's the benchmark. It should lead to not clinging. If whatever step you do, the more you do, the more frustrated, the more more tension, the more stress, that means there's clinging. Something is wrong. Something is the way you do it. So you need to troubleshoot yourself. Troubleshoot yourself. So this is the verse. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the 6 points, how to apply. Okay, so for example, when we covered mindfulness of the breathing, eventually the Vipassana portion will cover about impermanence of the breath, right? Correct? Impermanence of in and out breathing. So that's in line with the Satipatthana Sutta. In fact, the last 4 steps of the 16 steps of the breath meditation covers this impermanence. Okay, then the 4 postures also the same thing. If you're seated, then sometimes some people will say, I'm seated, I'm not moving, why got impermanence? There will be some kind of impermanence. Maybe your heart is beating, some movement, whatever movement, then you kind of synchronize it with the arising and passing. Okay, then the third one, all your activities, all the things you do, even looking, seeing, hearing, all the activities, right? Any change in the words, the change in the decibels, change in the brightness, when you blink your eyes, the image change all the time. So all these are part of reflection of rising and passing. Okay, mindfulness of body parts. I talked about it in the first few lessons. So a person, a surgeon, or undertaker, or anybody that deals with the body parts can be very familiar with all the body parts, but if they do not reflect on these impermanence, rising and passing, then no detachment. No detachment. Okay, so coming back to the activities, nowadays, some communities, some Buddhist communities, they start to treat mindfulness as enjoyment. Enjoyment. For example, drinking tea, right? So now I have a tea here. To them, drink tea, to be mindful, you need to be slow, everything slow. Drink tea. Take the cup up slowly. You smell, enjoy the smell. Then you drink, enjoy the drink, and they call this mindfulness. Maybe circular mindfulness, not the kind of mindfulness that which is in line with the teachings. I'm not sure whether you're going to chant. Before we eat, there's a food reflection, right? When we eat or drink, not to eat or drink for pleasure, not to eat or drink for entertainment, not to beautify yourself, right? So it's to reduce clinging. But the so-called mindfulness, which some places are doing, is to enjoy yourself, enjoy the taste. And if you go sightseeing, enjoy the sights. Wow, so nice. It's called mindfulness. No, so we call this circular mindfulness. Might be very popular because it's very easy to do and doesn't require any kind of detachment or renunciation. Very family friendly, so gain lots of crowd. So lots of people love this kind of mindfulness. But it's not in line with this one. Now we're going to cover mindfulness of feelings. So feelings, yes.
For the stages of decomposition of past.
Yeah.
How to see internal? Easily see external past.
Yes, external, that's right. The reflection would be one day I'll become like this. It actually doesn't matter whether it's internal or external because the mind itself doesn't have coordinates. Doesn't have coordinates. The whole idea of this understanding internal and external is to understand how clinging and becoming appear. Clinging and becoming appear. Right now, okay, this is got to do with a bit of dependent origination. A bit to do with dependent origination. I think we chant this morning on dependent origination, paticca, avijja, pacha, sankhara, and so on. So depending on our context, for example, if you're looking at me or looking at the screen or whatever, you have certain feelings. And after certain feelings, you have certain expectation. For example, now what's your role? A student, correct? So your listener, an audience, a student. So because you are in this current context, the context you have, okay, this is a classroom, this is a speaker, this is a teaching aid. So your role is now a student. We call this becoming, an arising of personality, become a certain person. Become a certain person. Right? So, and that becoming will have their own suffering. The ups and downs, the birth and death of a student. Oh, this lecture is too naggy, the lecture is boring, and you have all kinds of sorrow, lamentation, and pain associated with that personality. If let's say I ask you to change your context, for example, let's say I ask you to think of your parents. Different context, right? So what's your personality now? If you think of your parents. Yeah, become a child, right? You're a child. So as a child, then you think of the dramas of childhood, the ups and downs, your parents, right? So this the birth, aging, sickness, death, and the suffering of a child. And let's say you think of your colleague at work, different context. Then the same thing, different personality and the different suffering of that supposedly personality. Okay, so if you're thinking of something far away, for example, let's say when we do the Brahmaviharas on compassion, some people get so worked up over some poor region or some regions at war. For example, let's say you think of Palestine or Ukraine or whatever region at war. If you visualize the image for long, you will get worked up. You will get worked up because you become a certain personality involved there, even though you're not related. But you will soon become something. Same way watching any TV show. You get invested in the character, you imagine you're the character, right? So you get worked up. So we call this becoming. So it doesn't matter if it's internal or external. I remember there's a sutta, the Buddha mentioned there are 4 types of individuals. So the Buddha mentioned the superior kind. They hear of news of some suffering, some disaster, some suffering. Some people have aging, sickness, and death, not related to them. By reflection on this, they get release. They see the Dhamma, so that's the superior kind. Then the second grade, they hear news of their relatives, someone related to them far away, that is suffering. And upon reflection, they see the Dhamma. So that's the second kind. So they haven't seen personally for themselves. They hear far away. And the third kind, they see for themselves sufferings of their loved ones. And upon proper reflection, they see the Dhamma. And the fourth kind, they experience for themselves sufferings on themselves, their own body. And they see the Dhamma. So the Buddha mentions externally first, then inward. So that's the thing. So the mind actually doesn't have a coordinates. There's no inside or outside. It's about becoming and the cognitive process of becoming. So it's a matter of perspective. You can call it everything's in the brain, everything's inside. It's a matter of perspective. Okay.
Can you also relate to interpersonal?
Okay.
We are on top of mind of their body, the track, we should also mind person that
Clear comprehension. Yeah, clear comprehension. That means you're aware of the situation, aware of the mood, yeah, all this. Yeah. But yeah, in current context, people will use mindfulness, being mindful, the common term now, which we should be able to distinguish and differentiate between the right mindfulness and being mindful of the situation. So a non-Buddhist practitioner also can be mindful of, being empathetic and being careful in the speech. So it doesn't need a practitioner to do that. So we need to differentiate the mundane mindfulness and these four foundations of mindfulness. Yeah, it's meant to. It's meant to. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Being considerate is more of a mundane skill. The fourth foundation of mindfulness is more on detachment. So while dealing with interpersonal relations, you still can be emotionally calm. Emotionally calm. Yeah. Unaffected. Detached, yes, detached. So the key word is origination and passing away. So that's the key reflection. Right? So I always use the term, think of label impermanence or any word or phrase associated with impermanence. If you want to use origination and passing away, by all means. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Okay, so for feelings, we normally say 3 types of feelings: painful, pleasant, and neutral, and neither pleasant nor painful. And it can occur inside the body or mentally. So body, we know, right? You sit too long, certain feelings. So mentally, we can think of certain incident we do not like or certain incident we like. So there are feelings also. So it can occur mentally. Huh? Okay, so these are the few types of feelings and the same chorus, and the same stop formula. Whatever feelings you feel, you need to be aware of how it arises and pass away. How it arises and pass away. So interestingly, they also mention internally, externally. So internally, I would treat it as in your mind. Then externally would be like your physical body. So I would think internally, externally is very subjective, very relative. Okay, so it depends on wherever you place your attention, there will be the 5 aggregates. So there will be feelings. You think of incident, there is feelings. You pay attention to here and now, there's also feelings. So you need to be aware of the impermanence of feelings. So if let's say you think of a certain incident and you're too engrossed with the story, that means you're no longer mindfulness of the arising and passing of the feelings. So if a person wants to, for example, be aware or practice mindfulness on the 6 sense basis, your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, we call it open awareness kind of mindfulness. The key anchor is to remember this rising and passing. Is not to pay attention to the detail. Once you pay attention to for example, the thoughts, your mind or consciousness, your thoughts, you go into the dramas and that's it. Gone case. So you need something, an object, to kind of pull you back, an anchor point. Anchor point. So in this case, this recollection of impermanence. All right? See, any other questions? I think I covered for half an hour. I want to cover for too long. Tonight I'll cover the next segment. Who wants to go on? Okay, only one person. Who thinks it's enough for today? Theory? Okay. Not enough. Okay, that means I carry on. I see how much I can cover. Okay, so next is mindfulness of mind. Okay, so for mindfulness of mind states, there are a few things to take note. First is the emotions. So the first few talks about greed, anger, delusion. So the emotions or the lack of it. So these are the mind states. So before we meditate, and when we meditate, during the meditation, we need to observe the state of mind before we reflect, after we reflect, what's the emotion like. So it's part of mindfulness or mind states. Right? So before we reach the object well and happy, what's the state of mind? So that is called a mind with some aversion, with some aversion. So when we kind of reach the object well and happy, the aversion should reduce. We won't say no aversion, we just say reduce aversion. So we kind of take note of the difference. So this is one example. So when we think of impermanence, before we think of impermanence, there's still a mind of greed and a bit of delusion, a bit of clinging. But when we think of impermanence, when we detach, then the mind has reduced greed and delusion. So impermanence tackles greed, like in the opening statement, it mentions mindfulness, four foundation mindfulness, overcome greed and distress. So impermanence will help to overcome greed actually. Okay, so the next one, or the next few talks about your spatial awareness. Spatial awareness. So the mind, you can be aware of one small area, for example, like the breath. Or if you look at your handphone, one small area, right? And it can be also an enlarged area. If you're walking on the street, you need to look out for traffic. You need to be aware of the surroundings. Some people say mindful of the surroundings. So this is called enlarged mind. Enlarged mind. So you have the scattered mind. Scattered would be all over the place. So some people only learn one type of meditation. For example, they only learn how to do the breath. So they only focus on restricted mind. So when they come out of the meditation, then they tell you, I cannot meditate anymore. Then all the peace gone. All the peace will be gone. Then they'll tell you, I have no time to meditate because when I go back home, I have so much work to do, no time to meditate, right? So that's the issue. But in the holistic aspect of mindfulness, wherever you place your attention, however big or small, there's an opportunity for you to practice mindfulness. It's an opportunity for you to cling or an opportunity for you to detach. So this is the whole idea. Right? So a person can be restricted in a small area, but still can get very frustrated. Yeah? That means no right mindfulness lah. Or a person can be thinking of a small area, but detached. So these are the few examples. Okay, so if a person do walking meditation, okay, we don't talk walking, sitting meditation, you can do these few kind of spatial awarenesses. You can be restricted, or you can be doing the Brahmaviharas, open kind of expanded mind, or you can do open awareness. So that's for sitting posture. But for standing, if you're walking meditation, how? The mind also the same thing. It's not restricted to your physical posture. The mind can be different from your body. So even if you're walking meditation, you can choose to be restricted. Some people just want to observe the feet only. Some people want to observe a large area. For example, if you want to do multitask, loving kindness, you want to expand your mind while walking, that's also fine. So in the Thai tradition, they walk and use Bhutto, right? So they focus on the Bhutto chanting. So there's so many styles. There's no right or wrong answer to do it. Depends on what you want to cultivate. Depends on what you want to cultivate. So I give you a lot of options, so you can experiment in your free time. Experiment in your free time. Okay. So for walking meditation, who never officially learned walking meditation before? Okay, everybody knows how to walk, right? So sometimes people come to meditation class, it's like learning how to be a baby all over again. Learn how to sit, learn how to walk, learn how to breathe even. So don't have to teach you already. Okay. Then the next few talks about the more refined states of mind, whether is it in concentration or not in concentration. So mindfulness covers concentration. You cannot say, I want to have concentration but no mindfulness. No way. No way. Even in concentration, you need to be aware of its impermanent nature. Yeah. Surpass, unsurpassed. So surpass traditionally would mean if you have reached stream entry, I think, yeah? Surpassed mind. But for a more practical level, more practical approach, surpass would be, I would treat it to overcome your high score, your deeper state of peace. If you can surpass that, then good for you. Then continue to work on it. Okay, then the last one, released or not released, right? So that's the liberated mind. So we're going to now talk about same thing, mindful of impermanence, arising and passing. So some people will be thinking, concentration, how to be aware of arising and passing. So there is Jhana Sutta, which talks about the combination method, both samatha and vipassana in tandem. So each level of concentration also can reflect on impermanence. So that's the idea of mindfulness. Okay, so I'll cover here for today. The next one will be a bit more technical, mindfulness of the Dhamma. So any questions or issues at this point? No issues? Okay.
What's the difference between now? So, in desire,
Feeling numb, I mean, as in your posture, your feet. Okay, as in that you have an emotion that is kind of like numb in a way, right? Okay. Okay. What did you contemplate to experience that? Okay, so if you think of impermanence, it will eventually come to a state of like a kind of calmness and like neutrality. Uh, then you continue to do that. Continue to do that. Yeah. And, it's a byproduct. Byproduct.
maybe it's thinking about becoming realistic. There's no meaning because everything's
Yeah. So it's if you think of impermanence, whatever you kind of feel numb, we say maintain to relinquish, maintain to this relinquishment. If you get interested again, means you reacquire. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, no issues, all okay. Okay, so this should have enough tools, enough instructions for you to self-practice. That means you can cultivate on your own, or who wants a guided session again? Only one person. So the rest want self-practice. So I give you lots of options. Only one person. So never mind. Tonight, we'll see how. So there's options. You can experiment sitting or walking with various states of mind, different spatial awarenesses. So for you to try out. Okay, so that's the end of the sharing for today. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you can try shaving if you want. Soon, okay. Yeah. So everyone has different faculties, spiritual faculties. Even in the Buddha's time, there's a whole spectrum, people who attain quickly, maybe they hear a few verses, they attain. Some need some guidance over time, over years, then they attain. And some can't even make it. Or some don't even want to follow the practice. Or some even have aversion to the Buddha. So there's a whole spectrum. Pardon? At least theoretically, not the real enlightenment. Some theory, then the whole idea now is to practice, like keep putting right effort. Okay.
How do I do the meditation on the mental states? It looks so difficult. 2, 4, 6, 7 types of mental states.
Okay.
One by one or
it's not to do one by one. Okay, so the main thing is to overcome the first three. Greed, anger, delusion is to reduce that.
that one already little bit gone. So
Okay.
So concentrate on the last 4.
Yeah, the last 4 would be more of the result, the end goal. When you want to have a released mind or liberated mind.
Also, when we release our mind, this will come in, is it?
Okay, so this Ajahn Jeff's translation, I think some people will translate the released mind as liberated mind.
That means this type of feeling will come in. So we are on the lookout for this type of feelings?
These are not really feelings actually. It's a state of mind, state of mind, So of course, there are certain emotions that come with, like the concentrated mind, different concentration and different factors, jhana factors. Is to be aware, mindful of how it changes.
And then like surpass and all that, what is it like? I have never done this.
Okay, so the surpassed mind, some will call it, if a person become a stream enterer, so you surpass the ordinary. But for more practical usage, I will always say, try to win your own high score. Keep on applying right effort, So that's the only way to surpass yourself.
And then the other one, the release is the point that when they taught us that is the point.
Different.
Different
This release would probably mean a liberated mind. The mind that is enlightened.
So that means we won't reach this state already.
There's a finale. Yeah. Finale.
So that means this one is more advanced, right? So just from the breathing, we carry on, and then later stage only we come to the mental states.
Okay, so like when we did the breath meditation, the 16 steps, there will be the mindfulness of mind. There are 4 steps of mindfulness of mind. So one of them is the settling of the mind. So we need to be aware how the mind settles down. So it covers mainly the first 3. And when we pay attention to one point, we call this a restricted mind. If let's say we do loving kindness, we wish all beings well and happy, that's an enlarged mind. So all these are spatial awarenesses.
This is actually interplay of all these mental states that
Yes.
we are practicing.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Then when mindful of the mind in breathing, still come back to the breath. So we're mindful of 2 things, mind and breath.
That's right. Multitask. Mindfulness of the breath, keep on mindfulness in our breathing, and also be aware of the mind. It's just like, I don't know, maybe driving, if a person drives a car, he can't be solely just look at the front, right? He needs to look at the rear mirror and stuff like that. Yeah, so you need to like multitask. Okay.
In our practice, we can do all the body, mind, feeling.
Whether you like it or not, when these things will be there, but you may pay attention to one aspect at a time, but all four will be there.
Don't go one by one.
You can do one by one. You pay attention one by one, but all four will be there.
And how do we relate the jhana meditation to this jhana?
Yeah, so jhanas would be under this concentrated mind. The last second point, concentrated mind. Yeah, Brahmaviharas also is under the expanded mind. You wish all beings in all directions well and happy, expanded mind. And when we wish loving kindness, is to reduce aversion. Yeah, so the second point, aversion, to overcome aversion. And if let's say the more you do the Brahmaviharas, it might enter concentrative states, which is also under the concentration part. Yeah. Okay. So in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, I think we covered in the second lesson, it mentions you can do the loving kindness in all postures, standing, sitting, walking, lying down. So that covers mindfulness of the body also. Yeah, so you can do walking meditation while having an expanded mind. Okay, any other questions? All okay, no issues? Okay, then you can do your self-practice, 1 hour of talk. Okay. One question, yes.
Are we going to this practice? Are we going to do the body, then feeling, then mind, or we somehow in and out?
If you pay attention to the breath, there will be feelings, whether the in-out breath is comfortable or not comfortable, there will be feelings. So, in the Anapanasati Sutta, we have to find pleasure in the breath, so that's why we wish the in and out breath well and happy. Okay, so for the actual Anapanasati Sutta, the Vipassana aspect comes towards the end, and the last 4 steps of the 16 steps. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so this Satipatthana Sutta is geared towards more on Vipassana, because they mention the origination and passing in every phase, whether your body, the mind, and so on. Yeah. Yes, correct. Self-practice. So my guidance is always the same, 2 things. Either you do loving kindness to calm down the mind, samatha, then you switch to this impermanence, this arising and passing. So only 2 things. Very simple.